Hi guys, so today I'm going to run through what a good skill strength would look like in the EAPI. So roughly you're going to want to comment on around three skills that you observe that are strengths and then three that are weaknesses. And this is just an example from rugby of what you might say when you're analysing a performer. So I'm just going to point out to you what the examiner would be looking for here and what you'd be getting credit for saying. So this is an example of what you might say if you saw that their tackle was a particular strength of theirs. And the first thing that I've just outlined is what was the strength. So I said that player two's tackle was clearly a strength of theirs, as they repeatedly made those tackles throughout the game, and they prevented the opponent from getting over the gain line. So I'm just giving a brief introduction as to what I saw, which made it obvious that it was a strength. I've then linked it to something called the overall success of performance. So for every strength and weakness that you mention, you want to link it to how did it impact the overall game. So not just why was it a strength or weakness for that particular moment, but what impact would it have had on the overall game. So I've said that because of his good tackling, he was able to be on the front foot and compete at the ruck afterwards, and so were his teammates. So you don't just want to focus on why it was good for them, but why was it good for their team as well? So the fact that he was able to make these dominant tackles meant that his team were able to be on the front foot and compete at the ruck straight away rather than having to track back and then compete at the ruck. I've then said what that resulted in. So it resulted in multiple turnovers in the game, and it helped to relieve defensive pressure. So that's me really linking it to the overall success of performance there and why it was so good for the team that this player's tackling was a strength of theirs. I've then described what I saw as to why it was a strength, but I've taken the opportunity here to add in some theory subtly. So I said that player two had plenty of flexion at the hip, which would have been created by a concentric contraction of the iliopsoas, and also plenty of flexion at both knees, which would have been created by eccentric contractions of the rectus femoris. So I've thrown in some movement analysis theory, but I haven't just like gone on a tangent like, oh, the hip is a ball and socket joint where the femur and the pelvis articulate. They don't want that. They want it embedded into your answer. They want the theory to support your response, which that does. Because after that movement analysis theory, I've then said, why has that helped him perform the tackle correctly? So I've said that by doing all that movement analysis, it's enabled the player to get into that low body position. I've then linked it to another bit of theory by saying that this helps to lower the height of their center of mass, which makes them more stable, and therefore they're not as likely to get pushed over the gain line. So I've really embedded the theory there. I haven't just gone, oh, the center of mass is the unique point in the body where weight acts from, because that's just a definition. They don't want definitions. They want the theory from the course to support your argument. So overall, what I've done there that would get credit is I've just briefly outlined what the skill was and if it was a strength or a weakness, what I saw in the game. I've linked it to the overall success of performance. So not why it helped that person individually, but how it helped the team and the game. I've used movement analysis theory to explain what position they got into and why that was good. And then from that movement analysis theory, I've said, why has that helped them to perform the tackle successfully, linking it to also theory on stability as well. So overall there, for every strength and weakness that you mention, you want to give an overview of what you saw, which made it evident if it was a strength or a weakness. You want to say how that impacted the overall success of the game and how it impacted their other teammates. And you want to describe in that moment, why was it good for that the performance of that skill or tactic or whatever. And throughout it, you want to try and embed some theory from the course. So that's just an example there of one skill strength. Obviously, you have to do it for then roughly around two more skills as strengths and then three skill weaknesses. And then you have to do that for fitness and tactics as well. Then you have to create a whole development plan. But what I've done is I've created a whole ebook on this. So this ebook includes those example paragraphs for tactics, for fitness components. I've also included, I've written out a whole development plan as well to give you an idea. For every single bit of theory that they credit, I've written out an example paragraph of how you could apply that theory. So if this sounds like something that would be of use to you, I've put a link in the description where you can purchase this ebook. And also there is a link in the description if you would like further support on a one-to-one basis with me on how to improve your EAPI. But please do let me know if there's anything else EAPI related that you'd like me to cover in future videos. Or any topics from the course that you'd like me to cover in future videos as well. Just leave them in the comments.